Hey, what's going on, you guys? Hey, welcome back to another episode with iTrek. Big shout out to all the iTrek fan man that has just tapped in. Huge shout out to all the members. Huge shout out to everybody in the chat, man. And if this is your first time here, what we like to do is take a look at the most interesting and creepy videos from all around the internet. If you haven't already, smash that like button for me, smash that hype button, smash the subscribe button if you're not already part of the iTrek fam. Now let's not waste time, man. Let's get into it.
Look at this. A lot of people bugging out about this discovery. That is a real bug, a supersized stick insect newly discovered in the high altitude rainforests of northern Queensland. It is potentially the heaviest insect in all of Australia. The winged stick insect weighs 1.5 ounces. It measures 1.5 feet long. Scientists who discovered it say that its massive size could be an evolutionary response to its cool, wet habitat.
Australia is clearly built different. They hunt spiders to live with them, to protect their house, and they got all kinds of new breeds of insects. It's pretty interesting.
Have said these are some of the rarest genetics in the world that you genuinely have to see to believe. Zhang Ruifang is a Chinese woman who grew a 2.5-inch horn out of her forehead, thought to be caused by a keratin buildup on top of a skin lesion. Manar Majed was an Egyptian girl born with a second head attached to her head, the result of a split embryo in the womb that didn't fully develop into a twin. Her second head could smile and blink but could not survive independently and was removed 10 months after her birth. Gary Turner was a famous sideshow act in the UK because he was born with the ability to stretch his skin over 6 inches, allowing him to do some pretty crazy things. After DNA results showed that Lydia Fairchild was not the mother of her own children, even after she gave birth to them, she discovered she had an extremely rare condition known as chimerism, giving her 2 completely different sets of DNA. And Michael Latito, who had an extremely tough digestive tract that allowed him to eat sharp metal objects and once ate an entire airplane.
One of the craziest human experiments put completely sane people in insane asylums to see how well doctors could diagnose mental illness. 8 sane volunteers told doctors they were hearing a voice saying empty, hollow, or thud, which got them all admitted instantly and let them start the true test from inside the asylum. Once in, they acted completely normal, with the goal of getting discharged by the hospital. Other patients often guessed the 8 were faking, but staff never did. Every fake patient ended up getting diagnosed with severe mental disorders, and some of them were stuck inside for 52 days. But here's the real crazy part. In total, 12 hospitals were tested, and they all failed. So Stanford published a paper about the study. One well-known hospital challenged the study, saying, "Send us your fakes, we'll catch them all." So Stanford agreed, and over the next 3 months, 193 patients went to that hospital. Staff considered 41 of those patients to be imposters, and another 42 were considered suspect. That's when Stanford informed the hospital they didn't actually send anyone during those 3 months.
Now that speaks volume, because there's plenty of people every year that are admitted to the mental hospital but under false pretenses. I think some of them even use like the Baker Act or the 5150. That's pretty concerning.
Scientists just revealed a powerful new theory on intuition. And here are the 3 most important factors when it comes to improving your intuition. In a recent study, scientists say that intuition isn't random, it's actually an evolutionary built-in path-finding system, helping us navigate through uncertain environments. And this works where certain parts of your brain produces what's called short-wave ripples, which are replays of your past experiences, which act kind of like a mental simulation to help you test out the possible future without acting on it, which then connects to other parts of your brain that adds in the emotional and bodily signals, which we call the gut instinct. And this happens lightning fast before your conscious mind can even reason with it. And here are the 3 key factors to improve intuition. Number 1, build expertise in your area. The more experience that you have, the more accurate your intuition tends to be. Number 2, value your sleep. Short-wave ripples happens during downtime when your brain consolidates information. Number 3, tune into your body. Interoceptive practices such as meditation helps you build awareness of these types of gut instincts, which helps you directly improve your intuitive accuracy. Key takeaway here is intuition isn't random, so trust your gut feeling.
Scientists just forced guinea pigs to listen to Adele for 7 days, and the results are as worrying as they are surprising because something bad happened. And unfortunately, scientists weren't just testing what happens when guinea pigs listen to Adele. What they were actually testing was the damage to a guinea pig's inner ear when listening to over-compressed music, or in this case, almost any compressed music. And in case you're unfamiliar, music tends to come in two different formats, uncompressed and pressed. Uncompressed being raw, having the whole natural sound wave, and compressed being a condensed or compressed version of that. It typically operates by setting a limit and kind of squeezing all the sounds to being within that decibel range, or trims them in some cases, as you can see through these examples that I'm clicking through. But the end result is that the same piece of music, which was Adele, it was a bit random, is harmless when played in its original uncompressed version. However, it introduces a protracted deficit of one auditory neural pathway when overcompressed at the same level. Or, to be expanded upon a little bit in the Music Radar article that I was referencing here, the group listening to the compressed version endured more lasting damage to the middle ear stapedius muscle. This component of every ear, humans too, protects the inner ear from loud noises, and at 1 millimeter long, is actually the smallest skeletal muscle in the body. So despite the music being played uncompressed and compressed at the exact same volume, the tests showed that animals who had listened to the uncompressed Adele made a full recovery of their inner ear muscles within 1 day. But the test was repeated for 7 days with no discernible lasting effects. However, the group of guinea pigs that had listened to compressed music did not get off so lightly, with their stapedius reflexes never fully recovering and exhibiting half of their strength at the end of the experiment a week later. So basically they're damaging the stapes, which you can see the stapedius muscle would be right around that, right in here in our inner ear, kind of all around the region that we would think of as the cochlea. Apparently that doesn't like compressed music.
And says LeBron made a deal with the devil and his number will be called soon. This is a crazy theory.
Let me tell you something about LeBron. We're talking about Antarctica, the cell of the fallen angels. No other team in the NBA wants him. His time is up.
I mean, he is older.
I can't wait to see these shorts. His time is up. No team wants him. He's got 1 more year. And when he retires, his number would be called to either him, his wife, his daughter,
what that means.
or one of his sons. Somebody has to sacrifice because we allowed you, LeBron, to pass Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I'm telling you how these deep state devils think. They want blood. Okay? We gave you what you want. You're the greatest scorer in NBA history. We need someone to be liquidated.
I hope this isn't true, but
His
we're
number
going to see.
will be called. And you got a lot of listeners. Oh, you're saying he's going to die? I'm not saying he's going to die like Kobe. Something's about to come up. Be called. You see, anyone on that, and especially the rappers. We talked about this the first time I was on your Power Show. To go higher into the rap industry, you have to be butt broken, like you say, in humiliation. Okay? And so they're butt broken. That's the system. And if you don't want to give in, they're trying to destroy you.
I don't know. I sense a little bit of hatred in him. You know what I'm saying? Just a little bit. You think he's, speaking on premonition? Or do you think he just has a little disdain for King James? Let me know.
Crypto billionaire just bought San Francisco's police department their own surveillance headquarters, and it's inside his company's building. Chris Larson donated $9.4 million to move the police surveillance center into Ripple Labs' financial district office, the same guy who funded the ballot measure that destroyed police transparency rules. This center watches 15,000 cameras across the city, license plate readers, drones, body cameras, all feeding into one room that's now inside a private company's building. Here's the scary part. Larson already funded a citywide network of cameras that police used to spy on protesters. Now he's literally housing the police tech unit. The EFF warns this creates a constant surveillance of the entire population, but it gets worse. Police have already been caught sharing this data with federal immigration agencies. Your daily commute could end up in ICE's hands.
We've got an update on the singer who said, "I don't care how long it takes," because police have now confirmed that the body that was found in David's Tesla was a woman, a short woman who was about 5'2", black hair, wearing the typical tube top legging. But the most chilling detail was the tattoo on her finger that said, "Shh, The remains were dismembered, bagged, and badly decomposed, sitting in the Tesla's trunk for days before the tow yard finally called it in. Now, the Tesla, which had Texas plates and was never reported stolen, is registered to the 20-year-old romantic homicide singer. Now, his team said he's fully cooperating with police while continuing his world tour. Now, right now, the victim still hasn't publicly been identified, and police are treating this as a homicide investigation. The case is starting to raise way more questions than answers, like who was this woman, how did she end up in this car, and what happens when the tour ends. And on top of that, a second body was found scorched in the same tow yard. So I don't know what the hell's going on, but I don't care how long it takes. We're gonna figure this out. So be sure to give me a follow. Rest in peace to those that have died, and until next time, bye bye.
Who's ready for science-based technology nightmares today? Scientists have developed nanobots which can be deployed in the millions to treat brain aneurysms, and you can turn your sperm into robots that can treat your cancer. We'll talk about it. A group of researchers created nanobots which are capable of delivering clotting medication and cutting off blood supply to an aneurysm before they ever make a cut. These little guys are directed towards the aneurysm itself. Once they reach their desired destination, they'll stop swarming and start sticking to each other using the powers of magnets. They'll then release those clotting factors, and a surgeon can come in and cut it out. This is potentially a much safer way of treating it, and could save thousands of lives. 500,000 people lose their life to an aneurysm globally every year, and that number is probably higher. Those are just the ones that we record. But how do you feel about sperm bots treating your cancer? Now, if you want something swimming around inside of you, you may as well use something that's already designed to do that. Scientists have made sperm bots, both using living sperm and designing robots after their architecture. This could be used in a number of ways, one of which may be fertility treatment. If you don't have functional sperm, then you might just build a robot to do the job. The other application is you can direct sperm to release medication. And you shouldn't have an immune reaction if it's made from your own sperm. Which you might think, hey, that's a problem, only men can have that. Nope, we can make sperm out of female cells too. Now, if you're asking yourself, how do you get it in there? And then what does it do when it gets there? If you're not aware, sperm do sometimes go swimming into places they shouldn't be. The ovary is not actually connected to the duct directly, and sometimes you have an egg find its way out and the sperm go after it using a process called chemotaxis. This is why we hear stories about women who've ended up having an ectopic pregnancy on their liver or lung. So why not just have a little cyborg sperm going to treat your cancer?
Letting semen swim to deliver medicine inside your body is kind of wild. Maybe it's just me.
Sends me a picture of a handprint of one of these entities that's under the skin of the experiencer. When people think that they're trying to raise our consciousness, no. They want to say they're aliens and extraterrestrial, but they're using occult rituals on us.
And that people can't accept that Zion is actually part of the Matrix. It's because we don't want to accept that we're just cattle in that analogy. And that's why so many people misunderstand this, is because they think about the Matrix from the perspective of a human, something that's at the top of the food chain. But in this analogy, we're actually much more like chickens in a farm. So instead of thinking as this arbitrary thing like pods, the machines are doing what humans do to chickens. They're harvesting a byproduct of ours. So this is what our human pods would be to chickens. It's a factory farm. And each one of us has our cage, just like we see in the movie. Now all of these chickens have accepted this as their reality. This is the only reality they've ever known. It's like Neo in the beginning of the movie. And then if there was a chicken that came along, just like Morpheus does, and maybe this chicken sees the Neo chicken and it sees that it's struggling and wants out of the cage, so it goes over and bends the bars so it helps it get out. Now as this chicken escapes from its cage, it would just be like Neo breaking out of his pod. And once that chicken can freely roam the floors, that chicken would think that it had escaped, that it was in the free world now because that was its confine. Because for the chickens paying any attention, once you get outside the cage, you would think that you were free. And that's what's going on when Neo's in Zion and what he thinks is the free world. He's one of the chickens now running around on the factory floor, not realizing that he's following a set path. A path that the architect told him about, but he didn't understand. And that's because in this analogy, no matter how smart the chicken is, it's probably not going to understand what the people working on the farm are thinking. And that's because compared to the machines that have taken over, humans are just livestock. We're simple compared to their advancements. We wouldn't fully grasp what's going on. And from that perspective, it would be really hard to tell if you were getting funneled in a certain direction. Just like with Neo, stay in the cage or get out of the cage. And at the end of the day, you're still locked up on the farm. And they plan for escapes. This happens, livestock breaks out from time to time. And that's why in a lot of farm and livestock settings, you have 3 layers of a cage. You have the individual cage or stall that the animal's in, and all of those are put together in another sealed structure that would be your factory here, or in other situations, your pen. And even outside of that, you have more layers of fences. So even if you break out of multiple layers and you think that you've escaped, you're still in a fence. And that's what happened with Neo throughout the films. He started out in his cage, just like everybody else. He broke out of that and escaped to what he thought was the real free world. But just like the chicken, he's still not free. And this is all by design. Cows are never going to take over the slaughterhouse, nor are the chickens, and nor would the humans. And that's why even in some ways we look at the agents incorrectly. They would just be the factory employees that are working of helping abuse these animals, but they're not ultimately in control. They see us as a job that needs to be done. And the other reason that people don't want to believe that Zion is part of the Matrix, they just want an easy solution, like you run enough and you find the edge of the simulation. Because realistically, we would never know where the simulation ends. We would never know what the real world is. But that's all by design.
There definitely is some truth to that. I mean, there's a lot more going on than what most people understand, and especially with AI. You know, we see how cool it is, but only the creators of the AI understand the impact that it has now and what it's going to look like in the future. There's definitely a lot of things that go hand in hand with what he was saying and what the actuality of life is.
What happens to people who are high vibration versus low vibration? Like, what happens in the world to them? People who are high vibration, what do they attract versus low vibration?
There's 2 things when you raise your vibration.
Okay.
One, you become magnetic to like other high vibrational things and people.
Okay.
And then you just completely repel other people, right?
Yeah.
Those people that can't think
stand
that
me.
you're too good. Exactly.
That's true.
Like that.
People either, you know, the truth is, actually, now that you say it, people either love me or hate my
They
guts.
hate you.
Yeah.
It's like you want to be around it and hate you. And I experienced this stuff too. Like the other day I experienced it, right?
Really?
Yeah.
Who can hate you?
No, but I experienced it with someone else.
Oh, you hated them?
No, I realized that I was at a lower vibration and I was looking at them with envy and jealousy. And I was like, and they're doing the same thing as me, right? And I'm like, God, it's just something I don't like about that person.
Right.
And I found myself saying that. I even look at their Instagram page and just be like, this is something I don't like about that person.
Is that a bad thing?
Yeah, for me, that was a bad thing because it's a wonderful person doing amazing things in the world. So what I did is I called them and I said, hey, I'd like to meet you.
Really?
Yes. And so when I met them, coffee, I realized like immediately it was like a love connection.
Really?
And I said, oh, yes. That's the ego, the identity, the fear of not good enough, of not as good as all those things. I was in a low frequency. It was repelling me from this person. But as soon as I decided to make that change and do something different, I'm going to call that person and go and see who they really are. It was kismet.
You discover that most people are pretty bad friends. Human beings are not supposed to, we're not great white sharks. We are social animals. We are pack animals. We are very weak as individuals, but in groups, we're absolutely remarkable. We take for granted that friends are more than a nice to have. They're essential for survival and the ability to thrive. And there's a frustration with that, right? We actually have to work at being friends. The great frustration is it's actually not very natural. Like, yes, we could all make friends. I talk to people and you say, are you a good friend? And most people think they are good friends. And then you peel the onion just one layer and you discover that most people are pretty bad friends.
I mean, it might seem kind of pessimistic, but there is some truth to that. But also, it's kind of like, if your friends aren't growing at the same rate that you are, I don't think it makes them bad because you outgrew them. I think you just, your pace might just be a little bit different. But, I think there's just a little bit applies to everything, I think.
You ever wondered, how does an airplane engine actually work? First, air outside the plane is sucked in by a fan. Most of it actually gets directed around the engine and helps push the plane forward. But some of it gets squeezed through rotating blades, where it's mixed with fuel and then lit on fire. And when I say set on fire, I mean it reaches 2,000 degrees Celsius. For reference, lava in a volcano is about 1,200 degrees Celsius. So this explosion creates a jet of super hot and fast-moving gas, which rushes out the back, generating more thrust to push the plane forward, and spinning a turbine that powers the fan at the front. For optimistic science and tech stories, follow along.
My prediction here in 2025 is that in 10 years, there'll be a new branch of medicine, and it'll be called sensory medicine. There are three things that essentially regulate your entire body. Sensation that goes to the brain, processing that occurs in the brain, and an output from your brain to control heart rate, breathing, and all that. That tells you sensation is really, really important. And there are studies showing this, that if you actually have certain kinds of visual stimulation, that you may be able to improve outcomes. I think in 10 years, there will be a new branch of medicine in which we are mobilizing different parts of how we sense the world to actually improve your health.
A new material developed by MIT researchers should be able to block out sound entirely. And the image you're looking at right here is not an exaggeration, not some weird artist concept. Yes, the material actually is a thin piece of fabric like a sheet or curtain, and it's supposed to block out sound entirely. Technically, it's an advanced material or metamaterial, and what they discovered is two things. They could make a material that either does not vibrate and oscillate when hit by sound waves, or a material that is artificially constrained by an electrical current that blocks out pretty much all sound, so that a single piece of fabric is equivalent to a big, thick wall. Now, they said, we've invented this material, but we can't think of a use for it yet. At least that's what they said here in this article. Well, if you've ever lived in an apartment complex, I can think of a use for it. I have run into every type of bad apartment neighbor possible. In the suburbs, they have road construction that goes on for just, it feels like years. It feels like they can do like 2 feet of asphalt per day. Or my neighbor that drives around in what has to be a bad Max car because it shakes the windows as he goes by the house. Or my other neighbor that I swear to God is running a dog rescue.
Now, he wasn't lying. All they need to do is just put it out, and people will definitely find a use case for it.
This is an old mirror that...
To decide.
Cap. It's got to be cap.
A year ago, we thought we found what we believe to be signs of microbial life on the Mars surface. And so we put it out to our scientific friends to pressure test it, to analyze it, and go, did we get this right? Do we think this is signs of ancient life on Mars? And after a year of review, they've come back and they said, listen, we can't find another explanation. So this very well could be the clearest sign of life that we've ever found on Mars.
Cap. Got the cap back-to-back cap.
So everybody's jumping for joy over NASA's bombshell announcement about finding the clearest evidence that they ever have of ancient life on Mars. And it's incredible. But there is a twist to it. Unfortunately, the proof, basically the answer, could be locked away until the 2030s, if not longer. I'll explain. Real quick, for those who aren't aware, last year in 2024, Perseverance drilled a rock into a crater that it's been exploring since 2021. And inside that, scientists found strange red minerals with white leopard spot patterns made of iron, phosphate, even hints of organic carbon. Those features could have been shaped by microbial activity billions of years ago, which would be a very clear biosignature of life. But here's the rub. The actual rover can't prove it either way. Those tubes with the sample materials are sealed and stored on Mars right now, waiting for a future mission to retrieve them. And therein lies the problem. Returning them is obviously one of the hardest missions NASA has ever attempted. First, we've got to launch a rocket to Mars, and then launch a rocket off the surface of Mars, something humanity has never done before. Then the samples need to be caught in orbit by another spacecraft, packaged safely, transferred, and flown all the way back to Earth without any contamination. And the price tag, reviews puts it as high as like $11 billion, because the cost and complexity, of course. NASA now says that the earliest return won't happen until the 2030s, and some estimates stretch into the 2040s. So it's incredibly exciting nonetheless. But let me ask you this. Do you think we will ever actually get to Mars and retrieve it? Seriously, let me know. Do you think so? If so, when?
assuming that it's real, I mean, I could imagine 2030s, 2040s, but that's assuming that it's real, not cap. But let me know what you think about that whole situation.
Oh, we have things flying in the Nevada desert that are 50 years beyond what you could comprehend. If you've seen it on Star Wars or Star Trek, we've been there, done that, or decided it wasn't worth the effort. So that's coming from Ben Rich. Ben Rich headed the Skunk Works between 1975 and 1991. This is the original letter from Ben Rich on Lockheed Advanced Aeronautics Company letterhead. I am a believer, and so is Kelly Johnson. And here it says, Dear Ben, there are two categories. A, man-made UFOs. B, extraterrestrial UFOs. Dear John, yes, I'm a believer in both categories. I feel everything is possible. Many of our man-made UFOs were unfunded opportunities. In both categories, there are lots of kooks and charlatans. Be cautious, Ben Rich.
I keep seeing videos about how our timelines are all messed up, like how I didn't know that woolly mammoths were around at the same time that the pyramids were being built. But there's actually so many other weird overlaps that are blowing my mind. And before we dive in, if you love the spooky and dark, you'll love the podcast. Like how Dolly died the same year that Daniel Radcliffe was born. And even weirder, Eminem and Picasso were alive at the same time for 2 years. Rosa Parks lived long enough to be able to see the first 2 Shrek movies in theaters. And let's not forget that in her lifetime, she actually sued the band Outkast. When the Declaration of Independence was being signed, no one knew that dinosaurs even existed. Like, dinosaurs had actually not been discovered yet. And let's not forget that Cleopatra was born closer to the invention of the iPhone than to the actual pyramids being built. This one sounds fake, but is totally real. The last person to collect a pension from the Civil War died the year that Obama took office. And finally, the oldest tree alive today was around at the time of woolly mammoths. And not only that, but when the last woolly mammoth died, this tree was already 1,000 years old.
New research in neuroscience uncovers a unique brain bond between romantic partners, i.e., romantic partners actually do think alike, both at the neurochemical level and at the emotional regulating levels. Very, very interesting research. Basically, what scientists did, and I believe this was in China, is they found 25 heterosexual couples and 25 really close friends. And they wanted to study these groups and see how much their brains, their emotions, their thought patterns kind of sync. They put these helmets on them to give a live EEG, and then they showed them images that were very emotionally charged to elicit a response from your body, something kind of like what your Fitbit would pick up on and be like, are you stressed? And they studied the couples, male and female, and then they studied the really close friends. And what they found is that almost all of the couples were more in sync with both behavioral synchronization and like neurological synchronization than the friend group. And what's interesting is that they were able to determine that having a better relationship would actually increase synchronization. And when the quality or strength of your relationship lowers, there are higher levels of desync.
You see, articles like this, we all knew it before this even came out. They just put a whole science behind it. But if you've ever been around anybody long enough, you definitely have these kind of connections for a fact.
Figures begin running along the outside of the fence. Then suddenly, a few of the figures leap over the fence and land motionless on the ground. Just when you think that the video couldn't get any weirder, a long trail of light appears at the top of the screen. On one camera feed, we can see an object suddenly appear near the arm of one of the chairs. It suddenly flies out of the room, and its movement is captured by a different camera as it lands on the floor near an elevator. Eventually, someone picks it up and leans it against the wall. Then, shortly after 2 people are seen getting into the elevator, the cane mysteriously disappears. 50 seconds into the recording, the dorm room door opens up. It appears to open on its own because there's no one there. As his legs are being lifted high enough for him to almost be in a headstand, the man realizes that he's being hoisted up and starts to fight whatever it is that's pulling him along. The spirit almost succeeds in pulling him entirely off the bed, but at the last moment, it releases him. A bizarre figure has visited this residence late one night, and it has viewers seriously questioning their perception of reality. The entity moves on all fours like a canine, but when it comes closer to the camera, its body appears to be that of a human. However, the way it moves seems to rule out that possibility. Another possibility is that the recordings show a lesser-known cryptid called the Dogman. This creature, much like a werewolf, is a cross between a human and a canine.
It's a documentary of Lady Gaga.
and I think it's called Gaga 5.2. And there's a version on Netflix, but on Netflix, you don't see all the outtakes. You just see the main part that they want you to see. In the real version, in the outtakes, she tells a story about she was performing. This is before she was Lady Gaga, before the whole world knew who she was. She was performing in a strip club, not stripping. She was doing her set, her act in a strip club. And at the end of the show, she's loading all of her equipment into her truck or van, whatever it is. And she keeps walking back and forth past this guy. This guy's just watching her. He's not offering to help. He's not helping, but he lets her load everything up herself. And then he walks up to her and he says, I think you've got what it takes. I think you're going to be a rock star, and I can help you get there. And she thought, okay, this is just some sleazy guy going to offer to sleep with me, and you'll make me famous. And he says, all you've got to do is sign your name to the contract they'll give you. You'll sell your soul to the Illuminati. And once we have your soul, you'll be a multimillionaire. You're a rock star. Everybody will know the name, whatever name you're promoting. So she thought about it. She's Catholic, and she thought, I'm sure you can't really sell your soul, and I don't even know that I really have a soul. Yeah, I'll do it. I'll sign. So she did.
Hey, now that's wild, because I saw that documentary like maybe 2 years ago. I saw it, and I didn't think anything of it. I thought maybe it was like a fan-made, documentary video. Didn't think anything of it, but now he's trying to put some context to it. It makes a bit more sense. I mean, if you've looked at anything what Lady Gaga has going on, it makes a lot more sense, actually.
Microsoft claims to have the first quantum chip that will someday be capable of handling 1 million qubits. All the world's computers combined couldn't do what a 1 million qubit chip could do. The big breakthrough here is the topoconductor, or topographical superconductor. It's a new type of material that helps us bring Majoranas into existence. These are particles that don't exist in nature. They need to be coaxed into reality by us. This also comes with a new state of matter, so not solid, liquid, or gas, something new. Quantum computers are really prone to error, and this new state of matter helps keep them stable. Your computer uses binary bits. There are 2 options, 0 and 1, and you can only have 1 at a time. Quantum computers use qubits, and they can exist anywhere between 1 and 0. So, instead of trial and error, where your computer has to figure out a problem by trying each option, a quantum computer can calculate all those options at once. This means they're fast. The problem is, qubits are unstable.
If you notice your electricity bill climbing higher than it normally does, because it's not just inflation and it is not just your imagination. The real reason is insane, and it has everything to do with AI. So right now, news outlets are reporting that AI data centers are eating so much power that your bill is going up. A single ChatGPT search can use 10 times more power than a Google search, and the crazy part is they are not charging all the tech giants for it, they're charging you. So instead, they're spreading the cost of upgrading all of the power grids across all of us. This means that if you're somebody that's never even once used AI, you're still going to be paying for it. In Illinois, people already saw bills jump by 5 to 10%, and some nearly doubled overnight. Nationwide, data centers have been linked to 70% of a $9 billion spike in electricity costs. States like Ohio are literally forcing data centers to prepay their electricity costs because the grid cannot handle the demand. Experts are now starting to warn that by 2030, data centers could eat up 9% of all US electricity, which is literally enough to power millions of homes. So yeah, AI might be changing the world, but it's also changing your normal bills. Do you think that the tech companies should be the ones responsible for paying all of this, or do we really have to pay it?
I mean, are we really going to ask the people that question? Of course, the companies need to go ahead and pay it. It's not even a question.
Things I wish I never learned. The inside of your cheek is made up of the same tissue as the inside of your cootie cat. You can grow hair on your tongue. Earwax is a type of sweat. On average, we spend about a year of our lives on the toilet. There's a parasite in cat shit that can infect your brain and potentially change your personality. Armadillos are the leading cause of leprosy in the United States. When grass is being cut, it secretes a scent as a distress signal. So when you're enjoying the smell of freshly cut grass, you're really just enjoying the smell of grass calling out for help.
You guys seen those TikTok videos where they throw water in the dam and it floats? Look at it, look at it. Look at that. Oh, that really does it. There you go, man. It's not, it's real. It's real. It's real.
The whole situation with Charlie Kirk is not only strange, but it's really starting to get out of hand. By now, I'm sure many of you have heard that a political influencer by the name of Charlie Kirk was unalive during one of his events on September 10th. After the initial incident was announced, footage was released of a suspect running across the roof and jumping down from it after the shots were fired. And shortly after the release of this footage, a 22-year-old named Tyler Robinson was arrested and is believed to be the main culprit behind this attack. People have since been debating on whether or not they believe a 22-year-old was capable of taking a shot from around 200 yards away. Some think it's impossible without training. That aside, I will say I am very concerned about the route humanity is taking after seeing some people's response to this whole situation. Especially if you call yourself a Christian or a man or woman of God, the Bible in Proverbs clearly says that you do not rejoice when your enemies fall. This displeases the Lord. And this doesn't mean that you have to agree, sympathize, or even feel anything about the situation, but to be jumping for joy or excited that this happened to someone is the result of a hateful heart, and the people of God know that we're called to love.
What do you think about this Charlie Kirk situation? Do you believe that this individual was a professional shooter, considering your background?
I do not believe it was a professionally trained shot, because at no point in my sniper training was I taught to aim for the neck. And a lot of people keep saying, oh, but it's because there was an angle. Angle only necessarily matters, at least from my training, at 30 degrees plus. From 200 yards on a second, third story building, let's call it a third story building, that's still like a 5-10 degree angle. I don't think it would impact. At 300 yards in the Marine Corps, I can literally say, do I want to hit the left nostril or the right nostril, right? At that short of a distance, let's call it 200 yards, it would only make about 1.5 inches high at about 200 yards. And that's if it was zeroed at 100 yards, right? If it was zeroed at 200, if they were trained professionally, they would have zeroed their rifle or at least gotten the data. I don't personally think they were professionally trained because of the first thing I said before I even analyzed angle or any of that was shot placement. This is not, it's viable in the sense of mortality, right? Or fatality, but it's not a viable shot in terms of immediate incapacitation, which is, I'm sure, is what they were trying to accomplish.
But what you're saying is, if it was a professional sniper, given the distance, given the conditions, the shot's not gonna pull from the incapacitation zone.
That's too far. This is too far. There's video of the shooter in broad daylight on a rooftop. Whenever you set up a sniper position, a sniper hide, what's the most obvious spot that you're sniper? If you have no training,
you're silhouetting on
first
top
thing
of
you're
a
going to
roof.
do is look for a rooftop, right? There was a spot under that was shaded. At the very least, be in the shade to have less of a profile. So if they were professionally trained,
they would understand their exposure.
Yeah, their exposure. They would have taken a window, shaded it, taken the shot from there, still had an escape route from there. And I also heard that a rifle has been recovered. In the Marine Corps, you call that target indicator, anything a sniper does or fails to do, which reveals yourself, position, or equipment to the enemy.
Did you know all our standardized textbooks were published by Ghislaine Maxwell's father, Robert Maxwell? Yeah. He owned Pergamon Press, and in the 80s and 90s, they dominated academic publishing. Pergamon Press was able to control ideas, hike prices, and able to assert their agenda into the mind of virtually every American. If that doesn't make you question anything, I don't know what will.
I was gonna murder all of you today. I was gonna murder all of you, and now I'm having the nicest time. And you realize, take a second and think before you make just choices. Like, you're nice people.
Lock them up.
Oh, man.
Lock them up.
Hey, could you imagine hanging out with somebody that you just met and them telling you some crazy stuff like that? That's beyond wild. Ain't no going back to normal after that.
What would you do if you looked in the mirror one day and noticed that half of your face started shrinking? Crazy thing is, there's a medical condition that causes this exact thing to happen. This is what's called Parry Romberg syndrome, which is the progressive atrophy of one side of your face. As you can see with this case, it's often split directly down the middle, where one half of your face looks totally normal and the other half seems to be progressively shrinking as you get older. The wildest part is that we still have no idea what causes this. This exact situation happened to Yasmin Butler when her parents realized that she had slight asymmetry between both sides of her face. At first, her parents didn't really make much of it until they noticed that the problem seemed to be getting worse and worse as time went on. While we don't know what causes it, it's thought that it may be an autoimmune disease or a genetic problem, but Yasmin's actually started after she was hit in the face with a toy when she was younger. Yasmin has had over 7 facial reconstruction surgeries for this, but says that she can finally smile while looking at her reflection in the mirror. Swipe over if you want to see some other fascinating medical cases.
me tell you some things I just found out about. The Guinness World Record for most birthdays in one day belongs to a Pakistani family, with every member, including the mother and father, having been born on August 1st. Arnold Schwarzenegger had an older brother who was killed in a car crash in 1971 while driving drunk, and they both have sons named Patrick Schwarzenegger. How did I not hear that one before? The Luxor Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas is the third largest pyramid in the entire world. Tobey Maguire's father was convicted of robbing a bank. A New York man was arrested for keeping 7 live sharks in a pool in his basement. The creator of Pokemon was known as Mr. Bug when he was a child because he loved collecting bugs. Makes sense how Pokemon happened. There is a giant panda boot camp in China that teaches captive pandas survival skills before releasing them into the wild. I actually knew this one already, but I have to say it because humanity sent people to the moon before we added wheels to luggage.
I haven't had a good night of sleep since ChatGPT launched.
What do you worry about?
All the things we're talking about.
Can you be a lot more specific? Can you let us in to your thoughts?
I mean, you hit on maybe the hardest one already, which is there are 15,000 people a week that commit suicide, about 10% of the world talking to ChatGPT. That's like 1,500 people a week that are assuming this is right, that are talking to ChatGPT and still committing suicide at the end of it. They probably talked about it. We probably didn't save their lives.
And that just goes to show you all money isn't good money. Yeah, he's a billionaire, but he hasn't been getting any sleep. Is it worth it? I don't know.
Zookeepers say their jaws hit the floor when they witnessed one of the rarest events in the animal kingdom. A female iguana at a zoo in the UK has given birth to 8 hatchlings without ever having mated. It's known as a virgin birth. It happens due to a process that allows unfertilized eggs to develop into embryos, creating offspring that are genetic clones of their mother.
Where's your phone? Did you leave it out?
I don't use a phone. I haven't used the phone for a year almost. I find
France took it.
Oh, France took it, but even before it took it, I wasn't using my phone. I didn't have a SIM card in the phone. I just use it to test Telegram, the app, because we have constant product updates. I have to test it like at least twice a week. But I'm not a user of a phone. Well, I don't use phone regularly, right? I probably own a phone, but I don't use phone. I don't carry a phone with me because I find it extremely distracting. I find it also potentially harming my privacy. Mm-hmm. And I also I don't think it's a necessary device for me to have. When I want to focus on something, I would rather use my laptop or my iPad and put together some notes or some interact with my team, right? So I wouldn't want to just open my phone and disappear there consuming short form content. And that's why I don't use a phone.
This is probably the most accurate depiction of Jesus ever painted. And what's crazy about it is that it was painted by a toddler. On a July afternoon of 1994, a girl by the name of Akiane Kramarek was born in a tiny shack. She was born into a completely atheist family, and what's even more bizarre is that she seldom had any human interaction. So it's not like anyone told her or influenced her in any way. And as she began to grow up, her mom, who was a Lithuanian immigrant, started to notice something weird about her daughter. She would tell her mom that she was seeing things, but every time her mom went to look, there was nothing there. She would then just suddenly, like clockwork, start waking every morning at 4 a.m. and just starting to murmur some weird things that were so bizarre to the mom, and she'd never heard anything like this before. And obviously, seeing this happen to their little girl, their parents were really worried. Now, by the age of 6 years old, these visions that this girl was having had gotten so out of hand that little Akiane could just not contain herself anymore. She just needed to put this out into the world. So now this 6-year-old girl was waking up at 4 a.m. like clockwork, and instead of doing her weird murmurs, she would just drew on the floor, on the walls, on the tables, just anything where she could get her hands on. And she wasn't just sketching anything. Now, what she was sketching was something that was completely unexplainable and added more and more to their concern. Because how could she know any of these things, being that she was just a 6-year-old child? This went on for another couple of years, and the family really just didn't do anything about it, other than, of course, just trying to supply her to the best of their ability with like books to draw into and canvases, so she wouldn't actually be drawing on the entire shack. So this little girl kept growing, and by the time she was 8 years old, something really bizarre happened. And it was something that would change this little girl's life and their family's life forever. Because this little girl had begun to see someone in her visions. This was someone that she didn't really recognize, but she just knew that she had this overwhelming sense of love and just devotion towards. And she just knew that she had to paint this man. She needed to bring her face into real life. But you see, this little girl, she had never painted a person before, so she's begging her mom to please help her find someone that she could just sit in there so that she could paint them and she could put the face of this man on this person's body. When all of a sudden you hear this knocking sound on the door, and on the other side of that door was the carpenter her mom had called to fix in some things around the house. But as soon as she opens the door, Akiana just euphorically yells, "It's him! That's him!" Because that carpenter, he bore a very uncanny resemblance to another carpenter, although you may know him better as Jesus Christ. She did go on to paint this carpenter and overlapped his face with the one of Jesus in her visions, and that turned into what historians would call the most accurate depiction of Jesus ever painted. Akiana eventually sold the painting to a spiritual gallery for $850,000 and got her family out of poverty. She still paints to this day, and you can buy her paintings from her online gallery. Moral of the story being, don't judge someone on how things seem on the outside, because that little girl had beautiful visions, but to everyone else, they were scary. If you enjoy this type of content, consider following the page, and thank you for watching.
This is an intuitive exercise. Underneath my hand is a color and a shape. If you have an instant knowing, then skip to the end. If not, we're going to do a short breathing exercise with a visual meditation. Now I want you to close your eyes and take a deep breath in. And exhaling out, becoming relaxed and becoming the receiver of information. I want you to imagine a blank sheet of paper in front of you, some crayons and markers beside you. I want you to choose a color that is popping out to you the most and start to draw the shape, trusting what you receive. Now open up your eyes. You ready? That is a blue circle. Did you hear your answer? Did you just know? Did you see it in your mind's eye? Let me know how you did.
I got a red circle. You know what? I got a red circle. Let me know what you got. Well, you guys, hey, that's another one in the books, man. I appreciate you guys for stopping by it again and watching another one with me. If you haven't already, smash that like button for me. Smash that subscribe button if you're not already a part of the iTrack fam. Smash that hype button before you get on out of here, and I will definitely catch you on the next one.